Absolutely, when I think, what am I doing?
It's easy to say that it's easier now because there's things like Unity and Unreal that you can just download and make a game in.
I mean, there's times when game development is discipline. It's hard.
It's also harder because there's a lot more people doing it.
I realized that one could be a voice actor at all because I was playing Metal Gear Solid.
Sometimes it comes down to the most ridiculous things that get you the job.
And realized, oh, this is the voice actor. He does this for a living.
Don't be discouraged. Sometimes your worst turns out to be their best.
One of the most exciting things about writing music for games is the feeling of being on the frontier of an entirely new form of artistic expression.
Film and TV is quite linear, you know. Video game, it's very much like a tree. It could branch down this way or it could branch the other way.
In movies and television, it still requires a full crew, which is not necessarily the case in games.
Any games you can be involved in, jump in.
Just make a game you want to play. You know, it's like, that's what I did. You got to work at it. And don't lose the human side.
Start small, finish things, ship things, get them out the door. That is the single biggest piece of advice.
Distinguish yourself by being, I think, making a more personal statement.
We have no idea where this is going, and we are all blindly fumbling in the dark, and it's awesome.
Be involved in BAFTA because BAFTA do such incredible things, and these sessions are just part of the year-round program of activity, really trying to help with skills exchange and learning programs for those who are just starting out in their careers across games and TV and film, or film, games and TV, whichever way you want. BAFTA, as you know, and have probably been told several times today, is a charitable organization, and it funds other types of games programs such as the absolutely wonderful BAFTA Young Game Designer competition for 10 to 18-year-olds. If you're not involved in it, or your local schools are not, please do get them involved. It is so emotional seeing these fantastic future talent and their ideas coming through and breaking through. It also, of course, has the BAFTA Games Awards, which I hope to see many of you there. And the program also supports scholarships for postgraduate study, and also we have a yearly timetable of other public events. And the one that I am most anticipating is the annual Games Lecture on the 4th of October. Tickets are available on BAFTA.org by Siobhan Reddy, who is one of my favorite women in the games industry. She is studio head of Media Molecule, who have created some incredible BAFTA-nominated and winning games that are breaking boundaries. So please do grab your ticket because they are going to sell out and she will be fantastic. And talking of fantastic, I'm delighted to be introducing this amazing, I hope, it will be amazing, masterclass on Hellblade. Hellblade, as many of you know, picked up 5 BAFTAs, including the one that I'm most pleased about, which was our new category for Game Beyond Entertainment. So please, without further ado, please welcome the Ninja Theory team.
Thanks a lot, Joe. That's, I hope it's going to be incredible. It's a real honor for us to be here today to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming out to listen to us. BAFTA has an incredibly special place in all of our hearts as a result of the award wins earlier this year, so it's extra special that we can come along and be here at BAFTA today. So we're going to talk to you about Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I'm Dominic Matthews. I'm the commercial director at Ninja Theory. We've got Matt Stoneham, who's our principal technical artist, Jeff Goslan, senior character artist, David García Díaz, who is our audio lead, Mark Slater Tunstall, who is our lead effects artist, and Melina Juergens, who was our video editor and, of course, played the role of Senua. So I'll start with a bit of an introduction about Ninja Theory. So we're a studio that's been around since 2000, so we've been making games for 18 years. We're based up in Cambridge, and we're a team of about 100 people. We're all based in that one team. And the big piece of recent news from us was that at E3 we announced that we took the decision to join Microsoft Studios. So that's an exciting new future for us beyond Hellblade. Our first game was a game called Kung Fu Chaos, which was released in 2003 and was published by Microsoft, so that relationship goes all the way back to then. That was followed by Heavenly Sword in 2007, and we've just passed last week was the 11th birthday of Noriko and Heavenly Sword. That was followed by Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which was published by Namco, and then DMC and the definitive edition of that, and then Disney Infinity 3.0, which we worked on as well. And that brings us to Hellblade. And I'm going to make an assumption today. We're all going to make an assumption that you kind of know what Hellblade is. I'm sure a lot of you have played it as well. If you haven't, please do. And if you do, please play it with headphones. It makes the world of difference. So to start, I think it'd be great to just let the panel introduce themselves a bit more, what their role was on Hellblade, and I suppose a bit of their Ninja Theory history as well. Mel, do you want to start?
Okay. Well, I started 2012 as a photographer at Ninja Theory, and I was involved in doing behind-the-scenes stuff for Devil May Cry. And then I moved on to video editing and did all the DMC trailers, and then moved on to Hellblade, doing the Death Diaries on YouTube, and doing all the trailers for that as well.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I just became the actress, I guess, as well.
Yeah,
so I've got 3 jobs.
We can go into that in a bit more detail in a bit, how the story of how you ended up being Senua. Mark?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry about 20 years. Been at Ninja Theory for 6 years. Joined at the end of DMC, and then worked on Infinity, and then on Hellblade since the start of that as the visual effects lead of the studio. Yeah, it was good.
So I joined Ninja 3 years ago. I've been working on video games 18 years, I think now. And I joined Ninja just for Hellblade, and was one of the best decisions of my life. I just loved it. So yeah, and my role there was to create all the audio world of Hellblade and further games.
So David was also the composer on Rhyme?
Yeah.
So we had an interesting situation where Hellblade was up for some audio awards, and Rhyme was also up for some audio awards in the same category. So David had a good chance of winning.
That's true.
You high-fived yourself on that one.
Yeah.
It was a bit weird.
Jeff?
So yeah, I'm nearly 20 years in the games industry as well. Came to Ninja Theory about a year into Hellblade's development. Primarily covering all the enemies, to design most of them and make virtually, I think, all of them. And then helped out a little bit with Senua too. But yes, so character modeling on my side.
I started in the industry on Kung Fu Chaos, in fact, as an animator back in 2001. And then did a bit of pre-production on Heavenly Sword, and worked with some guys at Sony and at Guerrilla Games. And during that time, I transitioned into doing character rigging. And I came back partway through Enslaved. And kind of the role of character rigging has expanded into a larger tech art team. So we do a bunch of stuff. And yeah, it's been almost 10 years. Well, no, it has actually been 10 years since I came back now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been at Ninja Theory for 8 years now. So I started off in the industry at Capcom. Yeah, my role really covers everything that's kind of commercial at the studio. But on Hellblade, one of my key roles was everything on the publishing side, but also helping the team to work with the various partners, technology partners, but also research partners and musicians and all the other various people that we worked with to make the game possible. So Hellblade was a really interesting and new project for us. It was our first self-published title, so all of those previous games were games that we'd worked with publishers on. It was a game that we sold for $29.99, or was still sold for $29.99, and it was sold digital only for PS4, PC, and then we, earlier this year, brought it to Xbox One as well. And it was a game where we really focused on that Ninja Theory DNA, which is really character-led storytelling, beautiful worlds, unique art visions, and combat gameplay as well, which we've, of course, got a heritage in. And it was a very personal journey of Senua's into an experience of psychosis. I think a good place to start with the Hellblade story is back in 2014. So we just finished DMC Devil May Cry and came off the back of that project, and we started pitching a new IP, a game called Razor. So we've got pitch documents together and cool videos and stuff, and we started talking to publishers about that game. But it was really not getting anywhere. And we found that we were in an interesting time in games where the really top end of games, those big AAA games, had grown so big that it was very difficult for mid-sized studios like us to really compete. So this slide here is through that process of having that conversation with those big AAA publishers, the checklist of, or the boxes we needed to tick for our game to justify the $60 price point. And that $60 price point has been fixed in retail for many, many years, going way, way back. So the result of that fixed price point was the games had got bigger and bigger. That checklist had got bigger and bigger and bigger. The teams had got far bigger, and as a result, the budgets on those big AAA games were massive. And when the budget's really big, you need to sell that game to a lot of people, to a big mainstream audience. And unfortunately, what that meant was ultimately creativity was strangled, and you started to see less creativity at that very, very top end. So that AAA arms race, as we call it, has led to the extinction of lots of genres at that AAA tier, whereas years ago, games like Okami or Parappa the Rapper or Jet Set Radio, which were games that were AAA games, had the high production values, but were very creative, weren't for big mainstream audiences, could be justified and could survive. But unfortunately, many of those genres disappeared, and so did the teams that make them. So many talented teams have either disappeared entirely or have had to move away from traditional game development. And this was a kind of a problem for us. You know, it was, we didn't want to ramp up our team to hundreds of people, and we didn't want to reduce our creative risk-taking. So as a studio, we knew that we wanted to make creative games, and we knew that there was an audience that wanted those creative games. By this stage, we'd created a following that wasn't huge, but was pretty dedicated to the type of games that we make, really enjoyed our stories. So we felt that there had to be another way of making games that wasn't just at that AAA level. And looking at the kind of market at the time, the types of games there was the big AAA games, really high production values, very big budgets, big teams, but not a huge amount of creative risk-taking. And then at the other end, the indie space was emerging then, where small teams with not a lot of resource were not only being very creative, but they were redefining genres, creating genres all of the time, but really tumbleweed in between, nothing there. And that was the space that we kind of identified where we could fit in as a studio, where we could create something that was creatively rich, but still boasted those AAA quality production values. And the keys to this model for us were achieve those very high production values, sell the game digitally so we can break free of that $60 model and charge what we think is a good price for it, and digital distribution allowed us to do that. Self-publishing, so that we could have that direct relationship with our fans, and creative ownership. As a studio, we've never managed to retain our IP before, but with Hellblade, that was really an aim. If we can keep hold of the IP, then we can control the destiny of it as well. So we kind of built that structure and thought that that's the way that we could make a creatively rich game for a smaller audience. But ultimately, what that meant was our budget was far smaller than it had been on certainly any of our previous games, and in comparison to regular AAA games. So Hellblade cost us around $10 million. AAA games cost tens, plus $100 million plus, depending on the size of the game and the size of teams. But because we had that smaller budget, we could put our faith in our creative, and we could make a game that was for a smaller audience. The biggest cost on a game is your team size. So those big AAA games can have hundreds of people. A game like DMC, so a Ninja Theory AAA game, maybe 80 developers, actually hands-on working in it. Hellblade, we had an average team size of 20 people over the entirety of that project, which included me, and I'm not hands-on. So in this slide here, you can see that breakdown. So many discipline areas, there's just one person. So when it came to effects, it was all on Mark. Sound, it was all on David. Jeff had to take responsibility for all of the characters. And that was true in many areas. And this is normally where you would have teams of people, but we had to put that responsibility on one person. So we reduced the team size, but it also meant that we had to be super innovative in the way that we were going to deliver really high production values. And the aim at the beginning was that this game would feel as good as, if not better, and look as good as anything else that was out in the market. And performance capture is an interesting area where we've worked with performance capture for many, many years, going way back to Heavenly Sword. And we had to find an innovative solution to deliver this in Hellblade. And this is a good point to talk about Mel, really, and how Melina became Senua.
Well, the budget was low, so bring on the video editor.
Yeah.
Right?
But you were doing some tests, right? That's where it came
So yeah, it just started, they were just asking me to do some stand-in and some tests, and then Tam kind of gave me a script to play, and then I just did that, and he thought I had some potential.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah. So we were looking for actors to play the role. Yeah, Mel was a stand-in doing some kind of tech tests for us, and then just nailed it. And then I remember that conversation with Tamim where it's like, I think we should throw Mel into the
Yeah, I was just joking to him. I'm like, I would like to be part of the casting. And then he's like, yeah, you should try. And I'm like, nah, I'm shy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we couldn't have done it had we not had Mel available all the time.
Well, that was part of it, is if you get a professional actor in, they've got schedules and competing projects and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you get
whereas
2
available,
weeks, and then they're on the far side of the world, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly, whereas you're local and available, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we shoot performance capture, on our previous games, we've flown out to LA or to New Zealand to a purpose-built performance capture studio. And it's pretty pricey to go and do that. So the idea with Hellblade was take our boardrooms, our biggest meeting room in the studio, and try and shoot everything in there.
Took a bit of pressure off me as well, because sometimes if you get a scene not quite right, because I don't have any experience, so I would just sometimes want to reshoot a scene the next day because I couldn't nail it on that day. And you can just go in and do that. You don't need to hire an entire space for another day. You just come back to work the next day, get in your suit, do it again.
It's like the speed of iteration in any kind of creative pursuit. If you can iterate, really easily and really quickly, then you can take a lot of interesting creative choices. Whereas if you've got one chance to get it right and everybody's flown out for 3 weeks, everything has to happen in that 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or else you're looking at reshoots a year later, it's going to cost you even more.
Super expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we managed to build our mocap space in our studio for what it would cost for us to shoot in an external studio for maybe 4 days. We'd get in an external studio, and for that money we built our own in-house mocap space. It did involve Balash, our cinematics guy, driving to Milton Keynes to pick up some wardrobe poles for us to mount the cameras on.
That's IKEA.
The lights you can see in this, they're actually ceiling tile lights that we bought from Amazon.
LED panels.
Yeah. Yeah, gym mats, properly DIY, trying to get it up and running, try and get it working, plus convincing people internally, oh no, you can still use the boardroom, it's cool, whenever you want, and slowly over time, it's
don't touch the cameras.
Yeah, we moved the tables
Took
out.
over.
Yeah, took it over. But yeah, I mean, what it gave us was, it gave us a really good size volume to work in. The quality of the data that we got out of it was really good. But it just gave us that flexibility to go in there and shoot whenever we wanted to.
But it felt like now we'd always recommend it to, we've had conversations with people from other studios who've been thinking about doing this. They've come over and seen our stage, and we'll always say, look, just do it. But I do remember, before we kind of committed to doing this, it did feel like quite an undertaking. we've always gone and used external partners. So you get all the data cleaned up, delivered back to you, all nicely cut up and based on your shot request. But now you have your own facility. You've got to find space. You've got to get the equipment installed. You need somebody to run it. All the data cleanup you've got to do yourself. So, it's not. It felt like a big decision. It was the right decision.
Well, I remember when it first came up, the idea of doing it. The primary concern was actually the sound, because it's a room that's just in our office, right?
Yeah. Big problems there, huh?
Yeah.
The coffee machine?
The coffee machine.
Yeah, so it's right next to our kitchen.
And we're building flats behind the studio.
There is an AC, the massive AC tube that you cannot turn off because it's part of a big building, so...
Yeah. So every time we shot in there, we had to put signs up, right? Everyone quiet, we had to turn vending machines off, we moved the coffee machine.
Also, there's the flip side, right, though. You're in the office trying to do your work.
Oh.
You can just hear Mel scream.
Yeah, and I'm acting to be on fire.
Headphones aren't helping.
Yeah. There was a lot of support emails going into IT going, can I get some headphones? Really good noise cancelling
I also
headphones.
had people asking me, can I order you an ambulance or something?
Yeah, that's funny because when we bring visitors in now, it would just be a room with screaming and weird noises coming out. It'd be no, it's cool. It's all good. It's part of it. This is just a really good example of where it felt like a restriction, but actually what we got out of it was a new way of working. We wouldn't want to move away from having an in-house facility because it gave us a huge amount of flexibility to just iterate and to just try new things.
It's worth pointing out the effect that had on gameplay animations. Because we've as Dom said, we've used motion capture for years and years, right back from Heavenly Sword. But traditionally, we've always done the in-game animation, it's all being hand keyframed. And so having the facility in-house, suddenly there's a facility that the animation team can just go in and use, whenever they felt like it. And they really got on board with that. They really enjoyed using the motion capture data. They really enjoyed using Motion Builder. And the sort of the effect of that was if we wanted to put a movement animation set together for a new enemy, if you hand keyframe all that, it's probably 6 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
But, Chris Goodall, he could put something together from scratch. So from the moment he walks in the door in the motion capture stage, it's like a week turnaround to put a new movement set together. And so having this facility is seen as transition into using motion capture as the basis for pretty much all of our animation. Even later on in the project, we did a lot of combat work, albeit not on our stage because of the ceiling height restriction.
Yeah, it ultimately allowed us to do a lot more performance capture-driven animation throughout the whole experience as a result of having it in-house.
And the other thing, and it's not, this is kind of post-Hellblade, right? But we now use it for R&D stuff, for motion field and motion matching.
Yeah.
Animation system R&D, basically, which obviously we can do without that facility.
So another thing that we had to do entirely in-house was our audio.
Yeah.
So David came in partway through the project, and then we just kind of, I think, with that interview, we talked about it the other day, actually.
Yeah.
Me and Tamim spoke to you, and it was like,
yeah,
you're going to have nothing.
Yeah. Well, I came from a background that I was used to be doing similar, in my previous game, like Daylight or Rhyme, I was the only music composer, sound designer, whatever.
Yeah.
So it felt natural, the transition. This was like a big step up in quality. And yeah, basically, traditionally you externalize a lot of work like Foley, music composition. So the big challenge there was to be extremely versatile, right?
Yeah.
So you need to do one day 5 minutes of music because you need to be super fast. There is so much content coming to you, like mark, characters, VFX, and it's like, so you need to be super fast. And so dialogue editing, sound effects design, sound implementation systems, recording people, mocap, music composition, music implementation. So that was one of the big challenges of doing this, but at the same time you learn loads of things. Another challenge is the facilities are not always the best, but we get the best, and we focus in on other things. Not, the sound is not quite right. We focus more in the performance or the emotions there, and it worked very well. But it has big benefits, like incredible benefits. You meet the team. That is the most important thing. You know how people work. You can learn more about the game, like deeper. If we put an example of making a music composition, right? And if you externalize, you say, oh, I need 2 minutes of music like this style, whatever. So the composer do it at home. And it takes 15 days. If you do it and if you need any change, like, oh, now the scene is shorter and it will be interactive, so can you change it and another 15? So by the time you have the music ready, it's too late. And if you do it just yourself, it's like, okay, I can have the music in 3 hours, something like a rough edit, and I see if it works, and if not, I change it, and if it works, I move forward to speak to my creative director to see how it feels. And it's a process that is incredibly fast. So
yeah,
that's the big benefit. And obviously cost is more.
And we got to do cool stuff as well. Like, I mean, we'll come on to how we recorded the voices a bit later, but like the thing we did kind of right at the end of the project where we had a company meeting where we had the entire studio in. We do them every month. We have the entire studio in one room and we all get together. And then at the end of that company meeting, we wanted to record a crowd. So we had the microphone in the middle of the room and we got the entire studio to walk around it, recording crowds. And that's in the game, right? That's, that's towards the end of the game. So it's
in the Sea of Corpses part.
But that was always the attitude. Was
we
like,
were the corpses.
How can we make this? Let's try it and see if we can make it happen. And it was a lot of fun. But I think all the way through, you know, an important thing to bear in mind is if we weren't going to achieve the quality on screen or you know, in the game itself, then we wouldn't have done it. You know, everything we've done was to achieve that quality, but by being innovative, I think we pushed that quality even further, and the creativity. Another area was characters. So as Jeff mentioned, you know, really he created all of our enemy characters. You know, one character artist, and you know, this really would normally be a number of different character artists, but also concept artists.
Yeah.
Which we didn't have.
Well, yeah, we ended up with, so we did have a concept artist to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
And they chose to leave, which left us with a concept vacuum, essentially. And it's kind of like David saying with normally you'd have a composer as well, and you would lean on them, and suddenly you're doing everything, essentially. But I'm not a traditional concept artist. That's not my trade, so to speak. But I do have ideas for designing characters and that kind of thing. It's something I really enjoy doing. So it's kind of, you know, without having anybody else to come in, potentially not being able to actually afford to hire anybody else, you know, give me a shot, essentially. And I, you know, took a while to kind of get going and stuff, but eventually started creating stuff that was appealing to the team and to Tamim. But that's similar to what David's saying as well. That throughput of idea to execution is kind of singular. So, you know, as long as the changes I made to the character designs weren't going to screw up some of the stuff Matt was doing with the rigging or the technical stuff, or wasn't going to mess up the gameplay guys, then you could kind of just, and you know, as long as Tamim was in on the aesthetic change, you could just make that change and put it straight through. There was not that kind of, I mean, I came from much larger like companies before Ninja Theory, like sort of the AAA stuff that Dom's talking about. And to get any of those creative changes through, sometimes you'd have to talk to 3 different people, get a sign off from 4 different directors, whatever it is. And that's a due process that's necessary in the scale of those projects. But getting to take something from ideation to execution was just like, it was amazing. You know, it's like, it felt very dynamic and very live. Like you had your fingers right on it the whole time. So yeah, no, it was.
But I mean, the actual workflow for you changed. It's not like the workflow was the same and you did like the concept art role and then you kind of did the character art role. It's like you changed the whole approach.
It's all mixed in, I think, as well. When you're designing them, you kind of know what's going to work or not. So my concepts weren't fantastic at all. Like, they were decent enough to kind of show the team the general idea.
They weren't in 2D, right? They weren't like concept.
No, exactly. They're not like super pro or anything. But the fact that I was making them meant that as long as there was enough there to sort of convince the team of the overall idea of the design, then I knew I could execute better and sort of make these kind of things. But yeah, no, and it definitely asked, of Matt and myself, asked us a lot of questions of efficiencies and how do you make, with one person plus one model or one rigger, how do you get all these characters made and in game in time for the gameplay guys to actually do something with them? And
you moved, like you did concept in 3D, right?
But yes, it's 3D, 2D hybrids, but mostly 3D.
Yeah, which means that you can bring it straight to game, start evaluating
yeah.
kind of, you know, the proportions,
Exactly.
the silhouette, how it sits next to other characters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You decimate the mesh very quickly, get it on a rig.
Exactly.
Start posing up.
Absolutely. I mean, traditionally, it's most places are just using 2D concepts. A lot of people do use 3D concepts now, but most of the time, it's a really nice illustration. There's like the wind in the hair, there's beautiful lighting and all that kind of stuff, and it's better than it can ever look. So there's always this disappointment when the 3D character turns
Concept
up.
art's always like dirty cheats, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, this doesn't work in 3D.
Yeah, what's behind it? Oh, I haven't designed that part yet. You know? But in 3D, you can put it in the engine, you can go 360 degrees around it, you can light it in different ways, and you really start to highlight some of that stuff that you would not necessarily see from a 2D concept until you've got it in game, and suddenly the surprises and the kind of the cracks show in the design.
But I mean, like, actually, just sort of going back a bit, like, we established fairly early on, like, standard physiques, right?
Yeah.
That we, like, when we started working on a concept for a new character, that was the starting point.
Yes.
Which meant that, like, it already fitted a skeleton. We set up a bunch of base rig classes. Like, there's 16 characters in Hellblade, like, there's actually only 3 character rigs. Like, they're all augmented with, like, dangly bits, essentially, and Apex cloth, but, you know, there's one male rig for all of the enemies, apart from Hela. It's one female rig,
same female rig
which
as
was
Senua.
Senua and Hela, and then there's, like, the quadruped, of which there was one character.
Thankfully, yeah. Thankfully.
But, like, all of this, you know, like, whenever we start a new character, it fitted this template.
Yeah, and it meant that the gameplay guys already had, so you'd have like the build of like skinny, medium, and like heavy.
Yeah.
And the gameplay guys knew that they wanted, say the guy in the right up here, he's a heavy build, so they could basically take this, was basically a nude character, minus a few things, and he would go in the game fully rigged already, and they could start animating on him straight away. Yeah. And so by the time you built this and put it in, it just pretty much, it changed the silhouette obviously to a degree, so they had to adjust their animations.
Slots in, you know,
but yeah, their timing,
all the
feel
grip's
of it.
the same, reach is the same, stride length is the same.
Exactly.
And like the benefit of that is like all the different departments can do work in parallel, right? It's not like they've got to wait like until oh yeah, I can get around to this in 5 months time or whatever.
Traditionally has been quite a linear conveyor belt, you know. Yeah. No, definitely helps.
But I mean, the flip side of that is we actually, from a character set point of view, you have to spend quite a lot more time up front, like making sure that the base rig classes are really good. So, like we'd spend like what, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, I guess. Like me, you, Chris from animation, and like with a bit of design, input from design as well.
Absolutely.
But like just really putting like huge amounts of time really into just nailing down the character, the way it deformed.
Absolutely, even just the
like
adjustments to hands and stuff that we made. Exactly. That was very back and forth. I think it's kind of, when you've got the pressure to make something, it's like people just want to see results quickly. It's often sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're not actually making as much progress as you think. And I always sort of describe what we do, which is let's just do it properly from the beginning. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step, or 2 steps back, 1 step forward, and then from there on you shouldn't have to take any more backward steps. You can just keep going basically. But it's that you don't always have the luxury to take that time and get that break into production. But when you do get it, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yep.
So that was the enemies, and we made the decision really early on that we're going to really focus on one character, one main character for the story, and for her to be a character that we really went to town on. So budgetary restrictions meant that we couldn't realize a whole cast of characters in the same way that we did Senua. But it was a restriction, but it also allowed us to go, let's really make Senua as realistic as possible. Let's make her the most realistic real-time character that there is out there. And that involved us working with some interesting partners, so 3Lateral out in Serbia, Cubic Motion as well to bring the facial animation to life. So yeah, this image here is, I think this shows how close we got to actually bringing Melina to life.
That's a look development shot from in the run-up to GDC 2016, with obviously the real photo of Melina on the right and Senua on the left. So the idea is you do a ground truth shoot of your subject, so in this case Melina, and you, if you're developing an asset, normally you do a bunch of different shots, but this was a key light shot, so it's a very dark environment with a single very bright light. And
it was very hot.
It was, and you just got back on a flight from somewhere and you were massively jet lagged.
Yeah, I just got off the plane and then you put this.
And you've got like 1,000 watt light here, and we'd take a shot and I would have to stand out and cool down and take a shot. And we'd had to hang around the office for ages and like wait till everybody left and like clear a massive space out
Yeah.
because it's like
Dim all the lights.
yeah, it's like a what was it? It's like a 6-meter circle, and you put your subject in the middle, and then like you do an 8-point shot shoot. So you start the subject, and then you rotate the camera, and you start the camera, and then you rotate the subject, right? And then what you do is you recreate this lighting environment in Unreal Engine, right? You calibrate the lighting in Unreal Engine to your lighting, you know, in the physical shoot, and then you can have your digital asset in UE4, and then you have your kind of equivalent shot from the shoot, which we have there, and then you basically work on the digital asset, and you know you make sure that your digital character is responding to light in the same way that you know your ground truth reference is showing you. So that's what that is.
Mel, do you want to talk about Serbia?
Serbia.
Yeah.
Well, it happened really fast. So after I accepted the role, we all flew to Serbia together to visit a company called 3 Lateral, who specialize in face scanning. And they have put me in like this massive UFO-type sphere, like full of cameras. And I had to sit in there on a chair. And I don't know how many cameras do they have?
I think it was 90, but I mean,
it felt like hundreds of cameras.
Yeah. I mean, that's not very many, like now, but yeah.
And then they had
90
this
cameras
iPad.
all pointing at you. That's quite a few.
Yeah, and they had this iPad in the middle of it, so I could talk to people while I'm in the sphere, because like everyone was in a different room, so I was separate. And they were just calling me on Skype and telling me like what to do while I'm sitting inside this UFO. So they were like, "Can you do this facial expression?" And
So how many? You had to do a whole bunch of facial expressions,
Yeah, it must
right?
have been over 100 facial expressions.
Yeah.
And I nailed all of them.
Split into 2. Yeah, no, that is the.
He actually
like,
did say I'm pretty good at them.
You have a very well articulated face.
You're right. It's actually 106, and we're going to go through them all now. I think we've got time for that, right? So, slightly sad.
The shoot itself split into 2 sections. So they do one set where you pull like a very big overall expression, and then they take several shots of that one expression, but with a rotating light source. And I think there was 7 of those, but they're really difficult because you have to hold your facial expression while this kind of ring camera goes
don't
off.
breathe.
The camera goes off with the rotating lights, and we extract the texture maps from that. So like.
And the face mask. I had to wear a face mask.
So wrinkle maps and blood flow maps.
Not really a face mask. It was a Tesco Dead Sea mask. Which I put on in the Senua style. And oh no, who helped me? Somebody helped me to put it on. Hugh.
Yeah.
Hugh.
Yeah. And then we let it dry for like over an hour, I think. And it gets these nice crackles, which you can see there. It looks really cool. But it really hurts. So it felt like my face was just like that all the time.
So that's a good cosplay tip.
Yeah.
You want to get to get the legit thing, you need a nice budget.
It has to
face
hurt,
mask.
then it's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Other brands are available. So yeah, we really went to town on Senua, and you know we had that restriction that we could only do one character. But you know, it did give us that ability to really go into a huge amount of detail on her. But so to me, the creative director, co-founder of Ninja Theory, he hadn't really told anyone, but he still had in the back of his head, well, I'd still like to be able to see the other characters. And it's quite late on the project where he kind of mentioned this, and he's like, well, I'd still like to see them. And it's like, well, you know, we don't have the resources to do kind of a Senua job with these characters. So
just the point on that, like all of the enemies, like none of them have facial features.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Like the reason is because doing facial setup, and then because you then have to animate it, right? So it was sort of a creative choice, but also kind of.
So this kind of landed on you pretty much, Mark.
Yeah, and
That's because everybody else has passed the buck.
Yeah.
I have to admit, like, I definitely just thought it was a terrible idea. I was like, Tamim, this is never going to work. It's going to look like Mad Dog McCree or something. For the older people in the audience, you might remember that.
Much older people.
FMV in games is not.
What is FMV?
It's got a pretty.
We're like, there's no way we can get away with FMV, but like we had no other option really. So like I just had to take this footage and just start playing with the effects and post and stuff. Yeah, Balash, our cinematics lead, did some After Effects work on it just to try and match up lighting. But I remember something Professor Paul Fletcher, who we'll talk about a bit later on, when he was talking about people that have flashbacks and stuff. He always mentioned that they were kind of not in focus, and you kind of couldn't really kind of have a pinpoint sort of view of it. So I just chucked on like loads of depth of field, like just started phasing the lights in and out, and just basically tried to blur the footage as much as possible so no one could tell it was FMV. And it kind of worked in
so we just shot it. We shot it on a green screen that wasn't green; it was red.
Because we couldn't find the green screen.
We couldn't find the green screen.
And then we had my housemate Jess make all the costumes like last minute.
All the costumes,
That skull he's wearing, that's the skull I found on a dog walk. And then we had some like feathers. I don't know what we were using.
Yeah, and we kind of shot it and then kind of threw that footage at Mark, and and I think everyone in the team was like, "You've seen like live action in games before, right? Like, are you sure we want to do this?" And no one really believed in it. But I mean, this is the theme with the game, but with Tamim as well. Is like, let's push it, let's try it, let's try and do it quickly and see if it works. And
don't mention the end of Enslaved.
Who? Oh, yeah. I think you just did. Who's it came on and playtested, and Tamim was like, is he going to mention it?
It was Game Informer. So actually, we had, so the first time we showed this to anyone was when Game Informer, the biggest games magazine in the world, came in, other magazines are available. They came in to do a cover story. So we spoke to them about doing a cover story, and it was a big thing for the game for them to come in, and it was like, well, let's show it to them and see if they notice. So it was the first time they played it, and then they've been playing the game and no one was really in the room, and it's like they're going to get to this bit, and then there was suddenly loads of people in the room and they got through it, and then they turned around and it's like, yeah, we like it. It's like,
we're just waiting.
They haven't noticed, right? Everyone go, no, it's cool. They haven't noticed. So that was the real test for it. But it's just a really good example of where you might go, no, this isn't going to work, but actually having that attitude of, well, how do you know? Let's just try it. Let's try it quickly, and and see if we can make it happen. So we had a whole bunch of restrictions, but what we got was a creative freedom to tell the story that we wanted to tell and make the kind of game that we wanted to make, rather than making something that was dictated by a market or by a budget. We could really focus on the story that we wanted to tell. And the story that we wanted to tell was Senua, the story of a Celtic warrior who goes on a vision quest to save the soul of her dead lover from the Vikings. But really at the heart of Hellblade is Senua's experiences of psychosis. And when we first started to think about this subject and decided that this was a subject that we wanted to take on in the game, we knew that we had to be serious about our research and really get close to both the science of psychosis and mental health difficulties, but also the personal stories and the lived experience of people who have experienced the types of things that we portray in the game. We did that in a number of ways. We worked with the Wellcome Trust, who are a global charitable foundation, who, in part, they support projects that have the potential to engage people in scientific themes. So, they're a big supporter of us. And through the Wellcome Trust, we worked with a number of different people, but Professor Paul Fletcher, who is a professor of health neuroscience and a psychiatrist at the University of Cambridge, happens to be in Cambridge, literally lives 2 minutes away from the studio. He was a person that we worked with very, very closely throughout the whole project to build our scientific understanding, but also to put us in touch with and connect us with other groups. And one of those groups was a group called the Recovery College East, which is a recovery college based in Cambridge, where we were able to talk to and listen to people who have lived experience of psychosis, what it can be like to live with hearing voices, seeing visions, and having unique beliefs about the world around them. So this is actually the group and one of the sessions we had, and with Paul there, sitting there talking with that group. Mark, a lot of this work was on you really to kind of listen to those stories and then to try and visualize them in the game.
Yeah, I mean, as a team, we really didn't know a huge amount about the subject when we started it. So the knowledge we got from talking to Paul and all of these other people was just immense. And for me, like making the visual effects of it, I always started with either their descriptions or little comments that I'd heard about what these people were experiencing, and then just tried to sort of pick apart what it was about what they described in a visual point of view. And then, like, it was quite a while, wasn't it, just churning out like loads and loads of different types of effects.
Yeah.
And then we'd get them to look at them again and sort of just see if any of them resonated with them. And it was kind of really good when occasionally they'd be like, yeah, that is exactly what I experienced. So
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, so
let's use this. We're getting somewhere now. But,
Yeah.
I've sort of made so many different things that got chucked away, but you know, it's all good.
Well, for them, for the group as well, and for Paul, you know, they were really excited about seeing some of these things visualized for the first time. And this is one of the areas of the game where it's helped to tell Senua's story, but it's being looked at by people within government, within healthcare, and going, well, this is actually just a really good representation of what these experiences are like, regardless of the game. So now we're having really interesting conversations about how this can be used to train clinicians, and it's used in academia to go, this is what it can be like for people to experience these types of things. So the visions was one thing, and then of course, what became very clear to us quite early on in our conversations with people at Recovery College East and also the Voice Collective was that voice hearing can, for many people, play a strong role in their experiences of psychosis. So it was important to us to try and get that representation, that experience of voice hearing just right. David, how did we go about doing that?
So I think what you said before about the research is the core of this. So we ask a lot of questions to people with lived experience, like how they sound, questions like how distorted they are they real or where they are, how often, and get a picture of how they sound. Then I remember we did 2 tests, and they come over to listen to them. One was heavy sound designed, like with a lot of noises and things, and the other was more natural, and they clearly say, this one, this like this. And it's okay, and that was a very strong start point. And so we nailed more how they sound and the emotional side of them, but the other part of it was the technical side of how to make it sound special in the head, right? And I think that started with Tamim going to Edinburgh, right?
Oh, yeah.
To a theatre.
Yeah, so Tamim went to Edinburgh Fringe. Well, actually, there was 2 things. So actually, Mark, you sent an email. You thought you might not remember that. You sent an email with some binaural thing.
It was about the binaural.
Yeah. And then Tamim went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and he went to an experience. It was a binaural audio show, where I think it was in complete darkness, just with headphones on, and the experience was happening around you, like in the 3D space around you. So we'd heard these experiences from people where they'd said, certainly my perception going into those conversations was when people hear voices, then it's just an internal voice, right? But actually, for many people who hear voices, it can just be like you're hearing my voice now. You can place it. The voice is coming from in front of you, and that was something that really stuck in our minds. Is how can we try and represent that? And they're just, funnily enough, Tamim experienced this binaural show, and came back and said, I think this is the way that we can do this. And that's where we started to look into these oddly shaped microphones.
So this microphone arrived to the office, and the first thing we do was go into the basement and do a recording. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was just walking around. And then we listened to it, and we thought it was amazing. So binaural, basically what it is a special immersion, so our headphones, right? It tries to replicate how we hear. As you see, it's like a rubber. The distance between the 2 rubber ears is an average of the human head, right? So it's basically how sound waves interact with our body, with our skull, with our skin. So if I speak now through there, some of my sound will come back, will come maybe to this ear first, and go around and come to this. So this replicate that. So when you put headphones, you have this sensation of 360 voices around you. It's quite amazing.
So, and this is a really good example of something that is now being used in academia. There's a number of different academics that are using this in their lectures, just some voice samples of what we've done. And if you talk to Professor Paul Fletcher or Charles Fernie, who we worked with as well, they believe that this is possibly the best representation of voice hearing that there is, not just in a game or in a movie and everything, full stop.
Yeah.
So it's a great byproduct of the game that we've been able to put that together.
Yeah. When you start the game, it says like best play with headphones, right? And it's not only because of binaural. It's I think when you put headphones on, you are a bit more isolated from the world, right? So it creates a better mood for playing this game, and also because the voices felt more near, like more in your head. I don't know. It's just an extra little thing.
So this was the microphone that we used, to record all of those voices. And in the video here, we worked with theatre actors because we wanted to bring that physicality to the voices. So although you don't see any of this in the game, you can sense it because of that physicality. The performance comes through into the audio through this microphone. So we didn't want to just cramp people into a sound booth and restrict it in that way. And again, we had the boardroom there, the mocap studio. We put the microphone in the middle and had them perform around it.
They fight, they dance, they jam, run. It was
great.
Yeah, it was.
So it feels more than a voice. It feels like a person.
Because if you are singing and running, your tone of the voice will change based on how the lungs and your system change, right? So it's super important. Also, the noises that we didn't clean a lot the voices. Normally, it's a surgical process. Like, oh, he did this sound with the lips. Oh, let's remove it. This is not beautiful. We'll keep all of this so you can hear the voices doing on your ears, and it's quite disturbing. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Mel, I think Senua would be a challenging character, I think, for any actor to take on. And I think as a first-time actor, it's even more difficult. So it was a lot of fun, obviously. But what was that experience like becoming Senua and taking on that role and just being used in performance capture in that way?
Well, sometimes it could be quite dark because it's a very dark game. So I try to entertain myself in my breaks to keep the spirits up. It was quite an intense role, and hard to focus when you see that. It was intense. It wasn't just fun. I think working with the service users or with people that have lived experiences has really helped me to prepare for the role. And also, I've had my own experiences with anxiety and psychosis in my own close family. So it's a topic that's quite close to my heart, and I really wanted to get it right. So it was a big responsibility on my shoulders to present it in a correct way, I guess. So pressure was on.
A lot of fun with it as well.
Yeah, a lot of fun still.
Yeah, so something that when we had Paul come in and when we had the groups come in, and Mel was very much involved in that, and I think you got pretty close. We had a really special moment at the end of the game where we invited everyone we'd worked with to come and see the whole game. So they came in at 9 a.m. and
played through the entire game.
Played through the entire game with them sat there, and
that was really emotional.
It was really emotional. I was really quite nervous because we'd heard all of their stories and absorbed so much from them. They fed into the creative so much, and the last thing we wanted to do was do anything that just didn't feel right to them. And we were right at the end of development, and when we got to the end of that and we got to that last scene and they saw it and they said that they loved it and it was they found it incredible. It was hard to not really break down at that point because it was...
We're all tearing up.
Because we felt a real responsibility, These people had shared so much with us. We felt a responsibility to get this right, and it felt really good that we'd managed to achieve that.
I remember one of the dev diaries, I think Tamim was saying, even if the game is crap, if we can depict the experience in a respectful and correct way, that's the primary thing. If you mess that part up and make a great game, it's not worth it in a sense.
Well, and that leads us on nicely onto really this next slide, which was the response of this.
It's a good game too.
It's a good, and so the game did really well in reviews, and genuinely we didn't know how well it would do at all. We hadn't gone through a whole bunch of mock reviews and those kind of things to see what would happen with it. So we didn't know. So the reviews came out on the same day that the game came out, and for developers. I think some people can think developers don't read reviews, they don't look at NeoGAF, and
we do.
Other forums are available, but we do care. So this was a big moment for us to see that response and to see those reviews come in, and for it to do really well. And of course, the BAFTAs earlier this year was an incredible moment for us.
Right, yeah.
We were nominated for 9 BAFTAs and we won 5. And I think we all went into that thinking, well, if we can come away with 1, it will just be incredible. So it was a super special night for all of us. And the image there is Tracy from the Recovery College. So as Joe mentioned earlier, we won the Game Beyond Entertainment Award, which was very special for us, but it also gave us the opportunity for us to be up on stage with Professor Paul Fletcher and Tracy as a representative of the Recovery College, to show really just how much a part of the team, a critical part of the team, those people were. But I think the most valuable thing from Hellblade for all of us, above the reviews and above the awards, which were fantastic, and above ultimately the commercial success that we had with it, the game moved into profit pretty quickly, which was fantastic, and I think went quite a long way to show that this independent AAA model can work. The thing that stood out above that was really the response that we had from players. And this video here was our Accolades trailer, where we, traditionally with an Accolades trailer, you'll take your best reviews and you'll cut those reviews in with some awesome game footage. And we wanted to do something slightly different, so we took quotes from the messages that we'd received from players. We received hundreds, emails and letters.
And the screenshots were taken by them as well.
Yeah, and these screenshots are taken by fans as well. So we combined these two things together. And some of these messages, are really incredible. The game, we never aimed for the game to be about mental health awareness or about educating people. We wanted to tell Senua's journey in the right way and for it to be a compelling experience. The result is that it had a genuine impact on people's lives and on the lives of their families and their friends, which I think for us all was super special.
There's still letters coming in. There's some of the things that people send in that they sort of ask to share with the team, and there's another one in the other day that's up on the notice board, and it's just sort of it's amazing how much these things affect people, because you typically in games you're used to just making these things that are just somewhat just purely entertainment, throws and spills kind of stuff, and it's pretty intense to be involved in something that actually affects people in a genuine way and potentially has helped somebody.
Yeah, I mean that's right. We've all worked in the industry for quite a long time. We've all, got a lot of released titles, some of them, even quite good. But nobody cares about Killzone 2, right? So, to have worked on something that had genuine meaning for quite a lot of people, is a rare privilege, And I don't know, it would be, so it gives you an appetite to do more of that and to work on titles that probably are a bit less throwaway, that are a genuine exploration of subject matter.
When I first started Ninja Theory, I remember there was a quote, I think it was from Tamim, that was, games can do anything that movies and literature can do in terms of storytelling. And I think we've been on the road to achieving that, and I think in Hellblade we just managed to hit on some magic, really, that really hit home for a lot of people. So, that was a very special moment for us. And the story of Hellblade really continues. We've been fortunate enough through the success of Hellblade to be able to give back to our people that we've worked with and to the mental health community. We've run a few initiatives where we've raised over £100,000 now for mental health charities as a result of the game, which is fantastic to be able to give that back and make a difference as well. So whether you look at Hellblade as being an experiment in taking a small team and delivering a very high quality experience, or you look at it as being a game that can tackle a subject that other developers and publishers might traditionally shy away from, it's been a success, and it's really created a blueprint for us to move forward on. But also, our hope is that other developers will pick up the story as well, and it will give them the confidence and the ammunition to try and do the same thing themselves.
Yeah, hopefully it draws a line in the sand that this is a respectful way to depict something like this. Whereas typically, even before we talked to the service users and did our real proper research on this stuff, that even some of the early effects were coming out with some of the early designs for characters, the backgrounds and everything was kind of potentially the tropes and the stereotypes that you've seen depicted over the years in film and TV, which were maybe not as deeply researched. But just hopefully that means that the games that tackle similar subject material won't treat it as not disrespectfully, but just as sort of as shallow. Such a shallow.
Typically, it's used as an excuse for violence, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, I think that talking to certainly Tracy at Recovery College East, something she always says that it wasn't tokenistic. It wasn't a tokenistic collaboration, or the representation wasn't tokenistic. It was a 2.5-year collaboration with these groups to make sure that we got it right. And I think what you see in this trailer shows that it worked out, and it went well. So I think thank you very much for listening, and I think we've got some time for questions now, if there are any questions.
Firstly, thanks for the fascinating presentation. Can I ask how replicable a model in terms of this kind of AAA for an affordable budget and price is? Because I can imagine a lot of people thinking that we'll do it like that, but maybe we won't use a boardroom or whatever. AAA games got the way they were because it was a safe choice and you spent a bit more money and put more people on it and so on. And the second one is the fact that the company is now owned by Microsoft doesn't seem like the perfect segue from
that. Can other developers take the independent AAA and follow? Yeah, I think they absolutely can. I think there's advantages that we had as Ninja Theory, of course, and the team of 20 people that we had on it were incredibly talented and had the right attitude of let's challenge the way things have always been done. So I think you can have that attitude, but without a doubt, the fact that we had incredibly talented veterans of the industry involved in this project helped. So, but I think it is achievable. In terms of us joining Microsoft Studios, it's actually it's a very exciting step for us in as much as it allows us to go even further with our ambition as a studio. So everything that we've achieved in Hellblade, I think we can push even further. An independent AAA to me is a mindset and an approach. And as a studio, that's not something that's going to change.
I was going to just come back to your earlier point. Like the tools that are available to people now. If you compare it even to sort of 5-6 years ago, like they're really good. Like for all its problems, of using off-the-shelf software sometimes gives you, like Unreal's really good, Unity's really good. You can do a lot with small teams. Okay, so you can't have your own space for motion capture. Well, there are alternatives. Xsense is really good. Like it is possible to take off-the-shelf hardware and software and make some really cool things. Like, and that's the way that we should be doing stuff. Like, like the kind of the AAA approach. We'll throw 2,000 people at a project and we'll have 24-hour development. Well, what about the next generation of hardware? We're going to double that? Like, at some point you have to solve this set of problems, right? Like, because that's not sustainable.
Yep. And I think independent AAA for us was, a lot of it was in creating characters. But it was really about creating something of AAA quality in an area that we really care about. So that's for us as Ninja Theory. But I think for other developers, their thing might not be that. It's about delivering other kind of experiences and actually making those genres that might have disappeared viable again at that AAA level.
I mean, building strong partnerships with people is probably one of the kind of cornerstones.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, is
work out what you're not very good at and then there is bound to be...
Well, it wasn't even that. It's like, I mean, if you take the facial stuff, for example, I mean, it's not that we weren't very good at doing facial systems and animation, but it's just like the amount of distance we had to cover in such a short space of time wasn't viable with like that tiny team size. We probably could have solved some of those problems, but like
after 5 years,
you need a lot of people and a lot of money. It's like there are studios who just do that, and like, you know, actually, what is the point of competing with that?
Yeah, I mean, our partners were critical to us on this project, and I think, you know, something I say to kind of indie studios is, you know, nothing is out of reach until it's out of reach. So, you know, simple stuff like licensing music or doing mocap, like talk to companies, have conversations, and you'll be amazed at what you can do and where there might be mutual areas of interest. You know, like with our performance capture setup, we worked with a company called Vicon who provided our cameras. You know, for them, they were really interested in what we were trying to do, small scale, to try and show that, try and prove out that performance capture isn't just something that is reserved for the big AAA studios and can be used for other people. So it's a good point. I think talking to partners and just asking the question is a really important thing to do. Any other questions?
Thank you for a wonderful presentation and, more importantly, a fantastic and really meaningful game. My questions are all around the kind of project management element of trying to produce a game like this and producing it in such a DIY approach in terms of how did you try and manage that experimentation and trying to implement new things and discovering what works and didn't work, while at the same time trying to run it alongside a traditional project with financial worries of things going wrong and actual traditional milestones that your projects usually have to go to. Do you have to adapt your kind of management style? Did you have to try and do new things that you've not done before?
I was going to mention, when I first arrived on the project, there was not really a producer. And like, I was just coming from, like I said, the big sort of AAA kind of stuff. And I was like, and I was like, Dom, what should I do today? And you're like, I don't know, I'm not your producer.
Your work.
Yeah, and each person in each, you know, that chart you saw with all the different disciplines there, we all kind of had to manage and lead and produce ourselves. Luckily, everybody, the degree of experience on the team was that most people had done some kind of lead stuff before, then you had to manage time, then you had to schedule and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a little bit of a shock, you know, as you said.
It was very funny, actually. We were like super excited, enthusiastic first sort of few weeks, and you're like, oh my God. And now it's all fine.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, after much therapy, yeah.
I mean, getting the game over the line, right, getting it actually shipped, that's always the toughest thing, right? It's the toughest part.
That's always true.
That's the toughest, right? So you have to get a bit more production-y at that point.
We did get a producer.
Yeah. But yeah, I think really the heart of it was really giving the responsibility on the individuals in those disciplines to manage their area, which you know, I think had some pitfalls, but also like for you, Mark, you're the only one creating the effects, so there's no like, what's this other person doing? It's all on you, so you can.
I mean, I think all of us actually had to dip into other areas of the production that we weren't typically used to. So, like, loads of us at some point worked on the Senua model. Like, you know, you obviously did the traditional texturing stuff. I worked on shaders and hair stuff, and which isn't typically my realm, but
I mean,
like everyone sort of had each other's backs. So,
I mean, it comes back to an earlier point. It's like everybody had a really deep understanding of what we were trying to make, like what is Hellblade, right? Like, and because everybody had such a deep understanding of what it was they were trying to achieve and kind of like what we were aiming for, then it makes it very easy to kind of understand the things that you should be doing. Like where we did tend to have any problems tended to be with like more junior staff, right? Who didn't have quite the experience to be able to kind of make those sound decisions over a long period of time. So and that just comes back to an earlier point. It's like, how do you do it with top people? Well, realistically, you need senior staff.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming in and talking about this. It's been great. I was following the dev diaries as you were making them. Do you think that more studios should do something similar and show the work in progress? And do you think that had an effect on sales of the game as well? Because essentially you were kind of doing free advertising for yourselves by showing people what you were up to, which is, great.
Yeah, I mean...
I think people are doing it. Some studios.
Yeah, a lot of
doing
studios.
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could probably talk for like 3 hours. Has everyone got 3 hours? I could probably about 3 hours. But no, it was critical to the success of the game because the idea was that we would try and engage people at a deeper level with the game. So by the time the game came out, not only had we already created a whole bunch of fans around the idea and what we were trying to achieve, but we created evangelists for it as well that would speak for us. So if someone had just heard about it and said, oh, this is a game about mental health and it's got combat in it, this doesn't feel right, then that group that were following the dev diaries would jump in there and go, hey, no, look at this dev diary, this explains it. We're kind of doing that job for us. I mean, in terms of other studios doing development diaries, my advice is always showing what's behind the scenes. Kind of anyone can do that, I think. But I think showing why you're doing it, and setting out what that ambition is, I think that's what was compelling in our development diaries. It wasn't just that these guys were making the game and how they were making it, but it was how was one character artist making all of our enemies? How was Davi just doing the audio? How was our video editor becoming Senua? And because we set out that overall goal is that we want to do something different, we want to blaze a new trail of development. So I think a lot of people show what's behind the scenes, but really our approach was engaging people in a journey. We all went on a journey together. So I think if you've got that journey inside you that you want to go on, then absolutely share that with other people.
Also, it's really nice for us to watch it back sometimes.
Yes.
I can't watch
I sometimes go back to like the early ones. I'm like, oh, I look so cute and young.
I can't watch them.
And you have like a really fresh face. And
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've aged. I know. It's really
Now
bad.
we're like...
I've aged like 15 years. Like beard, no beard, really long beard. Like no hair, really long hair. Like yeah.
It was a tough time.
Yeah.
It was nice from a developer point of view in terms of somebody who creates assets or content creators, because usually a game, everything you do is shrouded in secrecy for years, and sometimes people don't see anything about what you do until it comes out. It was nice just to kind of have a little bit of exposure of what you do, get some feedback on it even, that kind of thing. It's, it just felt a bit more liberating.
Yeah, because video game cycles are 3 years long or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what I'm doing now.
No,
People
exactly.
like it or not, I don't know. You get little feedback there.
Yeah.
That's an interesting element of it, really, wasn't it? Like I suppose it comes back to the production question as well. Is often people work on games for 3 years and it's not seen or it's announced really, really close to the end. It was quite exciting to have your work go out there and see what people think and get that reaction. Yeah. And we got a buzz out of every time we released the dev diary, right? Like every time we pushed it out there, it was like, oh, cool. It's like a little release of a game.
And then, what are the new comments?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't.
Never read the comments.
Never read the comments.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, there's a message that says if you die too many times, then it will delete your save game.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind it, and is it true?
That's true.
So, what was
Did it mention the save game?
No, I think what was the thinking behind it? I think what the thing to say about that is, if it's true to you, then it's true. That's it. Sorry.
I just had a question about, with joining with Microsoft, after making a game so kind of powerful and kind of had so much reach, is there a worry about the reach not getting to so many platforms? Because obviously Microsoft obviously owns Xbox and has some kind of PC elements. But is there a worry about not reaching the audiences as widely as you did this time around in the next projects?
No, I don't think so. I think the types of games and the types of experiences that we make, the types of journeys that we want to take people on, the important thing is that it can find an audience, and Hellblade, you know, we've done over 1 million units, which is for us is incredible, you know. And this is versus games that are now doing 8-9 million units. You know, for us to do 1 million units, you know, I remember as a team, you know, the idea of us doing 1 million units was really something off in the distance. But for us to achieve that, so it's not a concern for us. You know, our games are for people that, well, a game like Hellblade is for an audience that loves games that will take them on a journey and take them on a story. You know, and I think there is obviously an audience out there for that. So this has to be the last question, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Should be that person.
Okay.
Thank you for an amazing presentation and an amazing game. So I wanted to go back again to the idea of the independent AA production. It sounds like it was possible because of the team that you had, that everyone had each other's backs and they also had the abilities to be able to do that, and each had sort of talents in other areas so that they could kind of dip in and help out. For people who want to make a game like Hellblade and who can all get behind this one idea with that level of both ability and flexibility and kind of intimate passion about this one idea, if you're more of a specialist or if you don't have that kind of level of experience, how might you, is this the Hellblade formula that might be pursued, or is there another path to it that you're thinking?
So I think if you're, I mean, it's just my personal thoughts, but I think if you're a very small team, there's incredible opportunities for indie studios now. Self-publishing, digital distribution, the platforms out there now want your content. And so you're seeing, an example that I like to use is Ghost Town Games. They're actually based in Cambridge that created Overcooked. It's a few guys, and they made it in their house, you know, and it's a hugely successful game. And they can make it for a very low cost because it's a very small team. They made it in their house, and it's a couch co-op game, right? And so a lot of people are thinking couch co-op's dead. No one wants couch co-op. Everyone's playing online now. But you can get those small teams that can go, actually, I think there's enough people that care about couch co-op, and that's the thing that we're passionate about. So let's go and make it. You make it at a low enough cost, you only need to sell a small number of units to make enough money back to go and make another one. So I think independent AAA is there's a really compelling argument for it now for teams that want to step up into AAA quality production values, or teams that have found that they can't make the games they want to in that AAA space but now can again. But I think for small teams, indie teams, maybe teams of graduates, you know, there's a lot of benefits to being that small, that nimble, and have very low overheads where you can really go and make whatever game you want, and you can publish it. You can go and publish it on Steam, on PlayStation, on Xbox, wherever you want, and find that audience. And it might be very small, but that might be enough for you to continue making games.
I'd say as well the scope of the game is going to be a huge part of that, in the sense that, like, it might be mostly just, most of the characters were just me, and most of the various other disciplines were just that one person. Yes, we did an amazing main character, but we only did one of them. But, you know, I did all those characters, but there was still only about 7 or 8 when it came down to it. I mean, it's not the kind of 36, sort of 35, 45, whatever characters you're going to get in a God of War or something like that. So, I mean, we maintained the quality, but we did have to scale back the size of the game. Not just the size of the game, but how many things there were in the game. So you can always approach it with that as well. If you're going to do something to really high, if you're going to do something to really high quality, a smaller, really good experience is going to be better than making some vast thing where everything's just vanilla average. You know?
I mean, Firewatch, Firewatch is a really good example of like an awesome game. It looks beautiful, but there's a conceit for everything, right? Why don't they have loads of characters in that game? Well, because you're the guy in the middle of a massive forest and you don't see anyone. And you never in that game do you go, oh, they've had to, because of their budget, they couldn't have any other characters. It's all explained. It's all through all of the stories told just through voice, through the radio. all make sense. So I love seeing those examples now of where you can feel you can see that there's production restrictions, but it doesn't come through in the experience at all, and make something like Firewatch an incredibly unique and beautiful experience. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for coming along today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.